Hello. Welcome back. Everyone ready for our next presenter?
Yes.
Very good. I'll just wait. You just do what you have to do. If you have to do the MySpace or the Instagram, whatever. Friendster. No, I'm just kidding. Darian's like, I don't even know what the heck this guy's talking about at this juncture. Okay, so our next presenter is going to speak about disabled. Please welcome Nico Meyering. You're welcome.
Hi, everyone. Let's begin our time today by taking a deep breath in and out. Thank you. Breathing is one of the most essential life functions for we humans. Good news, then, that for most of us, it's pretty automatic, right? You inhale, you exhale, you don't have to think about it, no real effort on your part. But that's a little more difficult for about 1,200 people worldwide. My name is Nico, and I am one of those individuals. There we go. Good. What we have is called congenital central hyperventilation syndrome, or CCHS. If you're looking for Colony Central High School, I think you're in the wrong building. What this means is that when we are sleepy, when we are sleeping, when we're ill, we require mechanical ventilation, what we call vents. There is currently no cure, no treatment for CCHS beyond mechanical ventilation. This condition is genetic, it is most often present at birth, and it is lifelong. Now, I've lived 29 years with CCHS. Dealing with this disability has given me a better sense of my own purpose and a better appreciation for the abilities of others, but also a global community. Let's take a look at this kid. This is, in fact, me. What happened, right? How'd I get this way? So after we look at the cute blonde hair and the chubby cheeks, we turn to something which is decidedly not cute. What is this thing under the neck? That was called the trach, and it's how I was vented for the first 6 or 7 years of my life. Someone over here said it is a trach. Now, when you're 6, when you're 7, you don't really want to be different, right? Different is bad. You want to be normal. You want to be like everybody else. When you're in kindergarten, one of your friends has to go to the bathroom, you have to go too. But at this stage of my development, I was very obviously different. Not only because of my trach, but also because I had a dedicated nurse follow me around. Me specifically, me, Nico, in elementary school and also in junior high. Now think back to kindergarten. When you came in from recess, you probably had like nap time, right? Lights were off, you had some cots, you could lay on the floor, and you could go to sleep. And I could not do that. This continued in high school, in gym class. I couldn't do a swimming unit without my own personal lifeguard. One year I had a female lifeguard who walked alongside me and kept pace with me. And the next year I had a male lifeguard who swam actually right next to me and asked me how I was doing, which is nice the first like 500 times you ask it. I really appreciate it. The 501st time got real annoying though. And I couldn't do the football unit at all. So it's no surprise that sometimes I felt isolated. I felt lonely. I felt like my body wasn't a body. I felt like my body was a prison. But you don't have to take my word for it. Studies bear this out. A 2016 study shows that people with disabilities do tend to have more life stressors. We are more susceptible to anxiety and depression. We do tend to feel more isolated sometimes, socially, maybe geographically. We have higher living costs, probably because we generally have higher medical costs, and that's all rolled into living. We don't always have the good social structures that allow us to achieve financial independence, that let us get the job or the diploma. It's not that great. But it's not all terrible either. So I stand before you today, and I just disclose that I'm a disabled individual, but it's possible that if you saw me on the street, you wouldn't know this. And I get it. Like, when I tell you to think of someone who has a disability, you might not think of me. But I tell you also that I'm an independent man. You know, I have my own apartment, I have a full-time job. I pay my own bills. I maintain my relationships with my family and my friends, with my girlfriend, too, with whom I live, and who is the brightest star in my sky. I even take care of my 2 cats, or they take care of me. And at this point, you might say, well, hold up, Nico. You can't be both disabled and independent. That's like saying that you have a pet hippo who's also a pet parrot. A cute animal, to be sure, but purely hypothetical at this point. And I tell you that this hippo-parrot paradox is a fake paradox. Just because I'm disabled doesn't mean I'm not independent. And even if I get you all to that point, and you say, okay, that's cool. Well, I don't really see you as disabled. I see you as enabled. I appreciate that, but that's also on the wrong track, right? Just because I'm an independent man does not also mean that I'm not a disabled man. My message here is that we do not need to be defined by what we lack. We are so much more than our genes, faulty or not. We can be defined by our ability and what we bring to the table, even if what we bring to the table is just our own opinions, our own lived experiences, and what have you. So, how do we get from little Nico, who was real cute, but sometimes felt lonely, sometimes felt powerless, to the incredibly handsome man you see before you today? Well, one real big benefit that I had in my life are support groups. A 2017 study showed that participation in rare disease support groups gave members better emotional health, less instances of anxiety and depression, less instances of social isolation. It gave members better coping skills. You get hit with a high hospitalization bill. You get hit with a sick kid. You get hit with bullying in school. And I have to say that I didn't experience much bullying, but there were some instances. We with CCHS do benefit from our own support group, which is called the CCHS Family Network, and on whose board I sit. The CCHS Family Network was begun maybe a year after my birth, begun by a woman I'm honored to call Mom. And we began not even nationally, almost kind of like regionally, real hit or miss. You know, you might live in South Dakota and not have any other CCHS families for miles around. Or you might live in New York City and have someone who goes to the same doctor as you do. Strangers became friends as we moved from being regional and not so connected to national and more connected. And then we moved internationally and became somehow even more connected. Strangers became friends, and friends became family. This is a photo from one of our first ever conferences, although I think the youth today call them meetups. The early 90s in Michigan somewhere. I'm still friends with some of these individuals today. Imagine you're running an obstacle course, and you run it every day of your life. And you think, and you feel, that you're the only person running this obstacle course. But then you find out that there are men and women running the obstacle course alongside you. And then you find out that there are men and women running that obstacle course after you and before you. Giving us a space where we can hear and be heard is invaluable. And I noticed something within myself also. With each successive conference, with each successive meetup, I got the chance to help other people with CCHS through their own troubles and their own tribulations I got to advise them, I got to help them, and this is one of the biggest honors in my life. When I am able to help people, activity that I took both first inside the CCHS Family Network and then without, running a soup kitchen, doing a canned food drive, whatever, I felt smart, and I felt useful, and I felt proud, and I felt valued. But I had never really felt these sensations so strongly before, so I thought I was ill. Checked my temperature, and I checked my heart rate, because I thought I had some kind of infection, but what I had to realize that it's not the flu. It's fulfillment. Growing up, as I did with this support group, has benefited me in numerous ways. Not only did I go to high school, and I went to college, I also went to graduate school, which I'm a little more proud of because, college was always expected of me. That was part of the plan all along, and grad school was not. In fact, after graduate school, I felt comfortable enough accepting a opportunity in San Francisco. So I went from Binghamton, New York, where I earned my degree, where I had lived for a few years, and a place that I grew up visiting because I'm from Oneonta, New York, so Binghamton is like a day trip to go shopping, to a city that I had never been in before, where I knew nobody, that I had only seen in books and TV. I knew that Full House was filmed in San Francisco. Never met Bob Saget, unfortunately. And when I now have an opportunity that I consider, I ask myself 3 questions. 1, is it safe? Well, yes, San Francisco was safe. There are CCHS families in the Bay Area and medical professionals, so if anything bad happened, I had some kind of support network there. Is it feasible? Well, again, yes, if I worked very hard, if I stretched my dollar and was frugal, and if I was lucky, I could afford to live there. And is it fun? Yes, absolutely. I fully enjoyed my entire year there. And I kind of felt like Frodo Baggins from the Shire. Gandalf knocks on your door and says, hey, Frodo, real quick, take this ring, drop it in Mount Doom, and then come back home. Easy, right? San Francisco was much better than Mount Doom. So after I got done in San Francisco, and again, I spent a year there, I moved back to New York, and then a few months later, I accepted a position in Texas that lasted a year. And then I moved back to New York. And then I got a full-time job here in Albany. I'm a civil servant, and that may be a public service or a public disservice, depending upon your opinion of civil servants and government workers. And all through my travels, I stayed connected with people with CCHS through Facebook. Being able to help other people with CCHS is one of the biggest honors of my life, like I said. I've begun to realize that it is not enough that I succeed. Others must also succeed. You don't get very far being a flash in the pan. I should not be the exception to the rule. I should just be part of a standard. At the intersection of self and other, you have empathy. I stand before you today to tell you that it took me 20 years to live in a body that I like, that I sometimes admire. And it took me 24 years to develop a personality that I like and sometimes admire. And if I can do anything to help young people with disabilities reach that same stage of acceptance earlier than I did, that's something I absolutely want to do. I have a friend who has CCHS, and she wants to pursue her PhD. She lives in Canada. And she wants to examine the psychosocial effects of being a sick kid. What happens to you in your development and your personality if you're frequently hospitalized? What happens to you if you can't do the swimming unit? If you can't go out for recess because it's too cold or too hot? I have another friend who lives in Massachusetts this time, who went to pharmacy tech school. Because after all, when he was young and he needed prescription medication, he got those medicines and those drugs very quickly and easily. And he wants to ensure that same ease of access, forgive me, for everybody else that comes after him. And I have another friend who wants to be a teacher. And she's going to school and learning how she can make her classroom accessible to everyone. These days, like I said, our reach is international. Not only do we have CCHS support groups in the US, but also the UK. We have some families in Germany and also in France. CCHS families in Japan are very well connected to each other. So often, rare disease support groups are at the forefront of advocating for themselves, advocating for more research, advocating for more funding for research, advocating for drug treatment, for cures. We exchange our own research, our own advice, and while we do not share a common location, maybe not even a common language, we do share experiences, we do share feelings and perspectives. This is why I like to say, nothing about us without us, because I've given you some examples of how my CCHS peers, people I'm honored to call my friends, have developed these skills like I have, and are now leading support groups on their own, and offering advice to younger families. In this way, rare disease support groups are acting as their own incubators. They've helped give rise to the next generation of leaders. So, truly, nothing about us without us. And I also like to say that while our reach is global, our community is local. So a few nights ago, at 3 a.m., when I, like most sane people, was asleep, I got a text message on WhatsApp from a friend of mine in Italy. And when I woke up and I saw this message, I was pissed. Just want to get some sleep, man. But then I reconsidered for two reasons. One, the question she had to ask me or the information she wanted to share was probably really important. And two, when it's 3 a.m. here, it's 9 a.m. in Italy, so I should really be more understanding. As I close my talk today, I want to hit you with more numbers. Like I mentioned, roughly 1,200 people worldwide with CCHS. That's not really much at all. You can't fill a stadium with 1,200 people. You might be able to fill a village, but even that would be sparsely populated, much less a town or a city. But our circle gets wider when we see that the organization Global Genes estimates that 30 million Americans live with a rare disorder. And our circle gets wider still when we consider that a few years ago, the CDC told us that 1 in 5 Americans has or will encounter a disability in their lifetimes. Asthma, diabetes, mobility impairments or hearing impairments, developmental disorders, neurological disorders like mine, everything. 1 in 5 Americans is 20%. 1 in 5 Americans is me. And 1 in 5 Americans may be some of you as well. So, as you leave here today and you go home, I urge you to go forward with compassion and empathy. And when someone asks you, hey, what did that weird blonde kid talk about? You can sum up my talk by reminding them, we're all a little screwed up. Thank you.
Nice job, Nico. Nice job. Stay right here for a moment. Nico Meyering. Nico Meyering. What a really just listening to you, what a really fascinating talk and an approach, because all of us being humans, we all have something that, you know, hold us back, that's innate rather, and how do we get through it? And your honesty in your approach, especially what you're most proud for. I smiled when I heard you say, you know, what made you most proud is your master's degree. And I mean that, and I think that's so, it's empowering, and it makes me want to, when I hear certain things of that nature and people pushing themselves to the limits, it's inspiring to me. One thing I was listening, I wanted to ask, are you still based, for the people out there, if they're not recognizing on the internet that we are in Albany, New York today, do you still reside in the Capital District?
I do.
You do? Okay, well that's good news because you're a good asset for the community, 100%.
Yeah.
And so two quick things I have for you. One, locally, where can someone, sometimes we all have afflictions that we're afraid to either admit, and where could they go and get in touch with you, or, you know, a reach out program that might be able to direct them to find answers or some sort of comfort that way? Do you have anything that comes to mind?
I would probably first hit up Albany Medical Center.
Okay.
In fact, that was where I was initially treated as a kid. My parents stayed at the Ronald McDonald House on...
Oh, great program.
Yeah, South Lake, North Lake.
Sure.
Something like that. You can check there. However, there are also disability-specific nonprofits in the Capital Region, if you're so inclined. A simple Google search will turn that up.
Yeah, nice. And then I'll leave you with this.
Sure.
I noticed in your bio that they gave to me, and I'm not sure if the people here are familiar with, if they have glanced them online, but you had noted that you're an actor.
Yeah, it's been 6 years.
Oh, and you still put it in there? Oh, well, no, I think that's great. And the reason I bring that up is, are you, so it's been 6 years, so you're not doing anything actively in that?
Correct.
But I think that's there, if I could just leave you with this, because when I mentor and coach, you know, younger people in entertainment, I think it's really, it's cathartic, and it could be a great way to how they can learn about themselves and then feel comfortable and then use that, you know, self-empowerment to go out into the world and spread joy and to be comfortable in their own skin. Would you agree with that? I
would agree with that. Initially, one of the reasons I got into acting in the first place is that having, you know, a hole in your neck is not really conducive to good public speaking. You slur your words, you don't enunciate very well, and acting is kind of like just hopping in the deep end and getting over it. So,
good job.
There you go.
Nico Meyering, ladies and gentlemen. Nice job, Nico. Nice job.